Beyond survival, the revolution of reclaiming your voice. Have you ever felt like you're living your life on mute? Like there's this brilliant, vibrant person inside you that the world never quite gets to meet? For far too many of us, especially Black women, we've been taught that our voices should be softer, our dreams more practical, our ambitions more reasonable. We're told that survival is enough, that we should be grateful just to have a seat at the table, even if we're expected to bring our own chair. But what if survival isn't the ceiling? What if it's just the floor? I recently had the profound privilege of interviewing Chashawna Wesby-Hankerson, whose insights have transformed how I understand the journey from silence to liberation. Chashawna isn't just another voice in the crowded space of personal development. She's a revolutionary force dismantling the very structures that keep marginalized voices silent. Through her groundbreaking work, empowering Black professionals and entrepreneurs, she has created ripples of transformation that have become waves of change across industries. Her ability to help people reclaim their authentic voices isn't just inspiring, it's reshaping how we understand power, creativity, and liberation in spaces that weren't designed for us. The truth that Shoshana so powerfully articulates is this: the world has a vested interest in keeping certain voices quiet, in maintaining the status quo, in telling us that our dreams are too big, our ideas too bold, our stories too much. But here's what I learned from our conversation: the very things we're told to tone down are often the exact gifts the world most desperately needs. Let me share with you the story of Jeanette Irvin. On paper, Jeanette had made it. Corner office, impressive title, the kind of salary that makes your parents finally stop asking when you're going to get a real job. But inside, Jeanette was suffocating. Every morning, she'd put on her professional mask along with her makeup. She'd carefully monitor her tone in meetings, second guess her ideas before sharing them, and swallow the words that might make others uncomfortable, even when those words were her truth. I was exhausted, she later admitted. I was performing a role that had nothing to do with who I actually was. The breaking point came during a high stakes presentation. As Jeanette stood there, delivering perfectly polished talking points about diversity and inclusion, topics she cared deeply about, she realized she was speaking corporate jargon instead of her actual lived experience. She was translating her reality into a language designed to make others comfortable with her discomfort. And something in her just snapped. Mid presentation, Jeanette paused. She set down her notes and she began to speak, really speak about what it meant to be the only Black woman in most rooms she entered, about the microaggressions she navigated daily, about her exhaustion from code switching. The room fell silent, completely silent. She thought she'd just ended her career, but then something unexpected happened. A colleague thanked her for her honesty. Another shared a similar experience. By choosing vulnerability over performance, Jeanette didn't just free herself, she created space for authentic connection where none had existed before. Within months, her courage rippled outward. Other employees began speaking their truths. Leadership implemented wellness programs based on actual employee feedback. The company culture shifted, not through some top down initiative, but through one woman's decision that survival wasn't enough. This is what Shoshana means when she says, you do not need permission to be whole, creative, and visible. Too many of us have been taught that we must make ourselves small or wait for approval before leading or creating. It's time to unlearn those lies and step into the fullness of who we are: raw, radiant, unedited. But let's be honest, this journey isn't one we can make alone. Regina Rivers discovered this truth the hard way. As a Black professional navigating corporate spaces, Regina encountered what many of us know as the Black tax, those extra hurdles that threaten both career advancement and well being. Despite consistently outperforming expectations, Regina watched as promotions went to less qualified colleagues. She sat in meetings where her ideas were ignored until a white male colleague repeated them. She worked twice as hard for half the recognition, all while being expected to serve as the unofficial diversity consultant for her department. The isolation was perhaps the most crushing part. Each slight, each inequity, each moment of being overlooked. She wondered if she was imagining things, if she was being too sensitive, if maybe she just needed to work harder. Excellence alone, Regina realized, cannot dismantle institutional obstacles. The turning point came when Regina connected with other Black professionals facing similar challenges. Together, they created a network where they could share strategies, advocate collectively for change, and support each other emotionally through setbacks. These intentional communities helped members access opportunities otherwise closed off by informal gatekeeping structures. Their collective advocacy led HR departments to review promotion practices. Mentorship programs were established specifically targeting underrepresented talent pipelines. By exposing these hidden costs publicly, by naming them, more organizations began addressing equity gaps transparently. This is what Shoshana means when she says community is non negotiable on this journey. No one thrives in isolation. Every breakthrough is built on support systems, networks that nurture authenticity and accountability while helping us push past systemic barriers. But what happens when, even with community, the systems themselves seem too broken to fix? When survival within existing structures feels impossible? For Delisa, the answer was to create something entirely new. After years in toxic work environments where her creativity was stifled and her well being compromised, Delisa made the leap into entrepreneurship. But this wasn't just about escaping hardship, it was about creating a vehicle for healing. Delisa established a business focused on supporting Black women creatives, a space where they could bring their full selves without apology or explanation. Many of her clients arrived burned out after years spent suppressing their creative gifts or conforming within traditional workplaces. The most persistent challenge Delisa encountered wasn't external barriers, but internalized beliefs that rest must be earned, that creativity isn't valuable unless monetized, that dreams are luxuries rather than necessities. To counter these toxic narratives, Delisa established workshops centered around storytelling circles, sanctuaries where women could share their journeys without judgment. These weren't just support groups, they were incubators for transformation. Participants reported renewed confidence in their voices and artistry. Several launched passion projects after years of stagnation. The business became more than profit. It was a movement reclaiming space for stories long silenced. The impact rippled outward. Collaborations between participants flourished. Representation at local arts events increased. And eventually, policy changes supporting mental health resources among entrepreneurs took root. This is what Shoshana means when she says, your creativity is not a luxury, it's your calling. For Black professionals and entrepreneurs, the world often tries to shrink our dreams or label our gifts as extra. But your vision, your art, and your story are essential, not just for you, but for everyone watching you break through. These three stories, Jeanette's courage to speak authentically, Regina's power of community building, and Delisa's creation of new healing spaces, illustrate something profound that Chashawna Wesby-Hankerson has been teaching all along. Liberation isn't just personal, it's collective. When you reclaim your voice, you create permission for others to find theirs. When you build community around authentic expression, you create ecosystems where everyone can thrive. When you honor your creativity as essential rather than optional, you model possibilities that others might never have imagined for themselves. So, where does this leave us? What's the invitation here? I want to challenge you, especially if you've been holding back your story, to take immediate action toward reclaiming your creativity. Tonight, write down one dream you've buried beneath survival mode, one vision you've told yourself was impractical or selfish or just too much. Look at it, acknowledge it, honor it as part of who you truly are. Then take one bold step this week toward bringing it alive. Share your idea with someone trustworthy. Start a project journal just for yourself. Sign up for that class or open mic night you've been eyeing. Or simply say aloud, "My vision matters." And when fear tries to stop you, because it will, remember what Shoshana teaches. The only permission slip you need is already inside you. We live in a world that profits from our silence, that benefits when we make ourselves small, that remains unchanged when we prioritize survival over thriving. But we also live in a world desperately in need of your unique voice, your particular perspective, your specific gifts. The journey from silence to liberation isn't easy. It requires vulnerability when we've been taught that vulnerability is weakness. It demands community when we've been conditioned to compete. It calls for creativity when we've been told that practicality is the only path forward. But on the other side of that journey, that's where we find ourselves, not the diminished versions we've been taught to present, but our full, magnificent, complicated selves. That's where we discover that our voices aren't just meant to be heard, they're meant to transform rooms, organizations, and systems. That's where we realize that in reclaiming our voices, we aren't just changing our own lives, we're changing the world. The revolution will not be televised, as Gil Scott Heron famously said, but I believe the revolution will be vocalized by you, by me, by all of us who dare to speak our truths in spaces designed for our silence. So today, I'm asking you to join this revolution, not tomorrow, not when you feel more ready or more qualified or more certain today, because the world cannot wait another day for the gift that only you can give, your authentic, unfiltered, magnificent voice. Unmute yourself. We're listening. And trust me when I say the sound of your liberation will become the soundtrack for someone else's courage.